Hello, welcome to Quack Co, the board game channel where every video is 10 minutes or less guaranteed. I'm Board Game Dave, and this week I'm taking over the channel, which is very exciting and also very nerve-wracking. But today is Monday Musings, and this is when we talk about just musings about the board game industry, the hobby in general. And my topic for this week, for today, is, and this might be a little controversial, at what point do you have too many board games? This is something I think about a lot. I look at my collection, I live in a very small space, I don't have a lot of room, and there are board game stacks and piles all over the kitchen and the living room and the bedroom and on the floor and in the closet and down the basement. And I start to think, do I have too many games? So recently on my channel, I went through every single game that I own. I think that was in October perhaps, and I've gained more games since then. And I think at last count I'm at 85 games, which to some sounds like maybe not too many, but to other people, a normal person who's not in the board game hobby, that probably sounds like an extreme amount of board games. They would call it an obsession. They'd say, I have an addiction to buying board games, something like that. So maybe you've heard something like that in your own life. So again, the question is, when do you know that you have too many board games? I think that this varies for each person, of course, right? Depending on your the amount of space you have, right? Maybe you have a designated board game room, or you have more space than I do. I live in a really, really small one-bedroom place, and I don't have the room for a ton of games, right? Maybe you have tons of money. You can just go buy any game you want. You don't think twice about it, and that's awesome, right? I'm at the place where I don't, I can't spend $80 to $100 for shelf decor. I want to invest in games that I'm going to play, that are going to get to the table, that are going to make my friends happy, So that's a big consideration, right? Space, finances, right? And also, like, the people that you live with. Do they support your hobby? Are they excited when you get new games? Or do you live with people, in your household, wife or kids or, partners, anything like that? Do they kind of get anxious every time there's a package at the door because they know it's another board game that's going to take up more of their space, right? So where's the support level at, right, from the people in your life? So I think it's another consideration as well. When I look at my board game collection and I think about Culling games, right, some of the things I think about are, of course, do I play this game? When's the last time I played it? I checked my BG stats. I haven't played this game in 2 years. Do I still need to have this game, right? Who am I going to play this game with, right? This game has been sitting on my shelf, right? Doesn't get played. Maybe it's never been played, right? I think who am I going to play this with, right? Who would be excited to get this out to the table with me? Who am I excited to show this game to, right? That's a big consideration. Other things, the rules, right? Have I forgotten the rules? Do I know the rules? Am I going to have to do a big rules learn for myself and then teach it to other people? Maybe you don't want to do that, right? Why do I have this game? What was the reason I got in the first place? What was exciting about it? And am I still excited about it? Or do I have other games that do the same thing? Maybe I do, right? One other thing I want you to think about too is moving. Because I have a friend that moved recently, and he's my primary gaming partner. And we moved over 1,000 board games from his old house to his new house, and it was an extraordinary Herculean undertaking, and we had a lot of people, right? So that was really helpful, but it's a crazy amount of games, and when you see it loaded in the back of a U-Haul, you start to have that moment of this might be too many games, right? So as you grow your collection, as you start hoarding a massive collection of games, just keep in mind, at some point probably they're going to end up moving, and what's that going to be like? What's that process? So one thing I think about, and I started reading The Joy of Tidying Up, I believe, is the book by Marie Kondo, and she talks about, of course, do the things in your house spark joy, right? It's a very minimalist approach. It's a very Japanese approach where, you don't just have clutter, you don't just have stuff. Really, everything should be meaningful, right? Do the games on your shelf bring you joy? Do they get played? Are you enjoying them with friends and family? Or is it just sitting there collecting dust, and maybe you could part with it, right? So it's something to consider. There's games you can probably sell, right? I find that the one thing that lets me sell games, because I have an angst about letting go of stuff. I think most of us do, but when I think about selling a game, right, my mentality is somebody's going to get this game who's going to play it a lot more than I do. Somebody's very excited about getting this game and wants to buy this game from me because they're going to play it and they're going to have a great time with it, and that's much better to me than a game sitting on a shelf, right? A game's end goal is to be opened and played and enjoyed, and if it's sitting on my shelf, I'm depriving somebody else potentially of having that experience. So keep that in mind when you sell a game. Somebody else wants that game. You could also, of course, give away games to schools and libraries, of course. There's places that would love to take your board games off your hands. So that's another option. You could sell board games to people who want them and then give that money that you made to charity. Or, you know what? Let's be more cynical about it, right? As you sell games, you're making more space for more games. So sell 2 games and then get a bigger, better, newer game, right? That's fine too. But those are some things I consider when I think about culling a collection, right? Why do I do it? What's the motivation? Why, how can I justify getting rid of games? Because, they don't need to be in my collection. Somebody else could have that game instead. So I think one last thing to consider is, do you ever feel overwhelmed by the size of your collection? And I think that's something, we don't talk about this in the hobby a lot, none of this stuff in general, but I think there is a sense of overwhelm in the community with huge collections. And I think one really interesting indicator of that is this term shelf of shame, right? You've probably heard this term pop up. Why shame, right? A shelf of shame is the games on your shelf that don't get played, that have never been opened, probably, that have never been played. Why is that shameful, right? Now, I know some people call it the shelf of opportunity, they call it other things, but why is that a phrase? Because I think inherently, right, at least for me, and this isn't for everybody, but at least for me, seeing a game on a shelf that's in shrink, that's never been opened, never been played, it just kind of feels wrong. I was going to play it, and then it got kind of, other games came, and that game kind of slipped my mind, and now it's been 12, 18 months, and it's just been sitting there this whole time, right? It's not a good feeling, right? And to me, it kind of stresses me out to have a game that I haven't played. I make a note on my phone, and I put a little red circle with a line through it, right? That means it hasn't been played. Red alert, we got to get this game played. So to me, I don't like having games that are unplayed. It feels unsettling, right? And if you feel that way, something's probably wrong with it. You shouldn't feel overwhelmed by the number of games you have or games that are unplayed. So if you're hearing a voice in your head saying, you got too many games, or you have a lot of games that are unplayed, listen to that voice. There's probably a reason why you're feeling just uncomfortable with games not being played. But again, that's just me. All of this stuff, everything I said, of course, is very personal. It differs from person to person. And I know people that have, 15 games, and they feel like, I got a lot of games. And there's people that have, I'm sure, easily over 1,000. Maybe they're pushing 2,000, thinking, I got no problem with this. This makes me happy. I never felt like I have too many games. And if that's the case, and you're being responsible, and go for it, of course. Own as many games as you want. But again, if you're ever feeling a little bit of resistance to it, why is that, right? Don't have too many games, right? Love the games that you have. Hopefully play the games that you have. And there you go. So think about it, right? Do the games spark joy in you? Why do you have the games that you have? And if you don't play them, maybe you don't need them. Anyway, that's it for today's Monday Musings. Please don't berate me or skewer me in the comments. I am not trying to be attacking anybody, of course, for your collection size. It's all relative. It's all totally personal. So have a lot of games, have a few games. I'm rambling. I'll talk to you later. Have a wonderful Monday. See ya. Bye.